Christie Chirinos is the product manager for Managed WooCommerce at Nexist. Christie is a passionate advocate for online business owner and a frequent speaker and writer on entrepreneurship, strategy, marketing, technology, and activism. With her previous experience as the co-founder of Caldera Labs, creator of Caldera Forms, she knows both what makes an online shopper tick and what they're looking for. Today, she talks to us about how to use the right web hosting for your MRR business in 2020. So let's get started.
So today we are talking about understanding web hosting options for MRR businesses in 2020. I'm really excited to talk about this. My name is Christie Chirinos, and we're going to go over all of different options that exist today, where we've been, where we're going, and told to you hopefully from a perspective that is super helpful. Which is one that has brought in both the MRR experience as well as the professional web hosting experience to hopefully give you some insight into how to make really great choices for right now and for the future about the web hosting that you choose for your business and your product. So my name is Christie Chirinos. I do a couple of things that are relevant to you right now. I am the product manager for Managed WooCommerce hosting at Liquid Web. The product is a leading platform for all integrated WooCommerce, which is one of our top e-commerce platforms in the world right now, thanks to the ubiquity of WordPress. We're seeing WooCommerce as the WordPress plugin for online stores shoot up to the top and really take over significant market share when we talk about e-commerce as a whole, looking across all other types of e-commerce platforms, even outside of WordPress, like Shopify or Magento or other e-commerce platforms you might have heard about. Before joining the team here at Liquid Web, and then the unit that became the Managed Applications unit, which is Nexus, I was one of the co-owners of Caldera WP, among other products that were monthly recurring revenue products. We had the Caldera Forms plugin, which is a form building plugin for WordPress. So the joke that I tend to make a lot, and it's really lame, is that I know a lot about using WordPress to sell WordPress products made for WordPress developers. There is a big world out there in terms of how we can use WordPress and how we can make products that other people who use WordPress want to buy. And I've been lucky and fortunate enough to get a good amount of wide breadths of experience in that field. And so I'm hoping that today we can talk a little bit about the things that I've learned about web hosting and how I think that they can be helpful to you as you make these choices. You might also know me, at least recognize my voice from the podcast that is associated with this conference. We have the WPMRR WordPress Business Podcast that goes out every Thursday. It tends to be Joe interviewing people, or it's me having a conversation with Joe. Joe Howard is one business owner that I really respect and one of my personal friends. So I'm really excited to be here. And other fun things you might want to know about me. I live in Austin, Texas. I really love cats. I really love music. So, I'm a totally real person. And if you have any questions during this or after this, you can ask them at the end, but you can also get me on Twitter. I'm at XCChirinos. And I answer all kinds of questions, pull up resources for you. Any question that you have about WordPress, WooCommerce, e-commerce, forms, I love to talk about this stuff, and I would be more than happy to point you to some things I know, give you some useful resources, and whatever it might be, just let me know. I'm here to help. And something that I want you to know about me is that I didn't really know that much about web hosting until pretty recently. When I was offered this new job at Liquid Web, I wasn't really a web hosting expert. I wasn't coming in as a seasoned web hosting professional. I was hired because I knew the WordPress space really well, and I especially knew the ecosystem for e-commerce plugins and extensions and applications really well. That's what the team wanted me for, but I didn't really know how the things underneath the hood worked. That meant that I remember right before a few weeks, I took this really long car drive because I was going to visit somebody, and I saved like 10 hours of LinkedIn learning content about how web hosting works to my phone, and I just hit play and I just listened to it, and I was like, okay, Linux, I understand this. And I want you to know that because the market didn't require me to know. I was a web hosting consumer and a business owner, and now somebody who had been hired at a web hosting company because the business and the industry is moving towards managed applications and expertise and the actual things that people are doing on those servers. So I had to figure out how much I needed to know to be successful at my job, but for the most part, I needed to focus on what I already knew how to do. And that's what I want you to take away from this. Web hosting is all about figuring out just how much you need to know to be successful, figuring out how much control you need, executing on that, and figuring out what you can let go of. Hopefully, in this talk, we'll get you armed with information so that you can make those calls and figure out the right strategy for you right now and understand how to make an informed decision if you have to change strategy in the future. Okay, that was a long introduction, but we'll keep going. So that's a little bit about me, a little bit about you. I think it's pretty important. If you're here for this presentation, you're already kind of in a niche. You're interested in WordPress monthly recurring revenue, and you've come in because you want to hear other professionals from the industry talk specifically about this recurring revenue model. So that's not everybody, right? There are a lot of consultancies in WordPress. There are a lot of other businesses that do not necessarily fall under the umbrella of monthly recurring revenue and are totally okay sitting in that space. So you're already kind of in a niche. And to me, that most likely means that you're probably doing a lot of different stuff. You're probably a WordPress site owner. You've probably been a user of a WordPress website, having currently powering over 33% of the internet. You have most likely used the WordPress website. You've probably edited one that didn't completely belong to you, or been a user of some role in one that didn't completely belong to you. Because you're here, in addition to owning a WordPress website, you're probably a product owner. That may overlap with your WordPress website, right? If you're creating tons of content and you're selling subscriptions and that's your recurring revenue model, then those two things are coming true in the same. But you might not be. There might be other things you're doing. You might have an application that exists outside of WordPress and works with WordPress. And to me, that makes you a product owner. You're going to have to make decisions beyond the scope of how do I put a WordPress website online and how do I choose a host for that. You're making a decision about how do I put a WordPress website online that interfaces with the product that I own. And that is a unique conversation when it comes to web hosting, and we're hoping that in this talk you can get a perspective about how web hosting works for that. And of course, not all of you are going to be interested in MRR. Maybe you are, but you're not quite there yet. But what you are currently doing is you're consulting for, working for, or in any way interfacing with the WordPress site owners, the users, and the product owners. And you still need to know this stuff, because building a site and choosing a web hosting provider for somebody that's interested in recurring revenue is very similar, but not completely the same as simply thinking about the regular requirements of a content site, or maybe a site that is a little bit less demanding because of the lack of the recurring revenue and subscription component. So really quickly, I said we were going to visit where we've been. A brief history of 15 years of WordPress hosting. 15 years is kind of a number I chose. It's more or less, it depends on where you've been, but it all overlaps. And we can start by thinking about unmanaged hosting. This is your usage-based server providers that you can fully administer yourself, that you must maintain fully yourself. This is your AWS's, this is your Linodes, this is your DigitalOcean. These are really incredible platforms that are very attractive for product owners. They are usage-based, they are obviously leading and powering the top apps in the world right now, and in a way, not all of them are truly unmanaged, right? Like I listed DigitalOcean, that's not really an unmanaged platform. The support is fantastic, but you're looking at a different level of service. You're looking at a product by technical people for technical people. This works really well in some cases, and in some other cases, just because you can do it doesn't mean you have to or you should, And those are the spaces that we'll cover. Above that, we have something like managed hosting. Liquid Web has been around for a pretty long time. And before Liquid Web got into the space of managed WordPress hosting and managed application hosting, Liquid Web was and continues to be a leader in managed hosting. In the case of managed hosting, we have a step above completely unmanaged hosting. We have the VPSs that exist that are a super affordable and attractive option for freelancers and business owners that really know what they're doing. We have where we started with WordPress hosting. We have those VPSs that are running cPanel that allow us to have quick installations of applications and do some management in a standard way. Beyond that, we have managed WordPress hosting. With managed WordPress hosting, we're having people who are taking it a step above. So not only are we managing your servers, offering cPanel, including permission support, but we're also thinking about the WordPress application. And a lot of time we're including extra perks. We're giving you things like security suites, we're giving you things like WordPress plugins, themes, and so on and so forth to make sure that you can be successful with this particular thing. And then we have managed application hosting. We're starting to see more and more of this. This is what I work on. Now, technically, managed WordPress hosting is managed application hosting, but when I talk about managed application hosting as this set, I'm specifically starting to talk about these sites that can be running WordPress, can also be running WooCommerce, or can be running other open source applications. And they are dynamic, living, breathing sites. We're not just displaying something. If you go to ChristieChirinos.com, that's a WordPress website that's just displaying something. It's a great choice for managed WordPress hosting, but I'm not selling things. I'm not asking you to log in and review your subscription or your order history, but a site that's running WordPress and WooCommerce or WordPress and Easy Digital Downloads is doing those things, and managed application hosting may be a really great choice for a site like that. Just a quick review. So with the wide options and the way that hosting has changed in the last 15 years, we tend to think about shopping for hosting and we're a little bit behind, right? We see these types of questions all the time. We see, oh, well, is this hosting plan shared or dedicated? The hosting world has changed a lot since we only had shared or dedicated options. Many cloud hosting solutions are in fact shared solutions that can offer you a dedicated server or cannot, and instead dynamically distribute your resources across multiple servers. We can have virtual dedicated servers on cloud hosting, which are a different sort of resource management. We can have traditional shared VPSs. It's more complicated than shared or dedicated hosting, and you want to start getting into the habit of asking your host questions about your real goals. When you say something like shared or dedicated, most of the time what we really want to know is my site going to be okay if other things happen across the network? What types of things are you doing to intelligently allocate resources? And these are the questions that we want to ask. On the same theme, as a lot of times we want to know, how much RAM do I get? How much disk space do I get? How much bandwidth do I get? And all of these questions are ways of asking, will my site stay online when it gets lots of traffic? And that question is actually more complicated in 2020 than do you have the right number of resources, because you could have a very well resourced plan, but if WordPress is doing something it's not supposed to be, either because a plugin is doing something that it's not supposed to be doing, or because something off is happening with your site in any other way, an unexpected traffic spike, anything, then even the correctly resourced plans may not be the right way, and you want to talk to your potential hosting provider about what kinds of features and care they're taking for those types of situations. We get, well, I have full access. I get what you're trying to say. What you really want to know is, are you going to throttle or in any way control my experience in a way that's going to prevent me from executing on the unique vision that I need to execute to succeed in a highly competitive e-commerce market? And then that's not even touching on all of the new questions that could come up if you're paying attention at innovations in web hosting to see what we can do and how we can manage bigger and bigger loads, and the kinds of custom setups that are available when we're looking at that less managed hosting level of service. And what I want you to really take away from this is that in 2020, modern web hosting companies understand you have to be different to succeed. I have for a long time, even before I worked here, seen a dichotomy where we think, well, we're doing a couple of unusual things. So a managed host that's applying the same template to every single site is not going to be able to handle what we're doing. Whether that's because your product is an application that has to interface with your WordPress website in some way, whether you're running some sort of recommendation engine, leveraging WordPress and other technologies, then you end up getting into the space of, well, we have to have all of this under our own umbrella. And sometimes that's true. And really assessing that situation is important to make sure that you can ensure that you're scalable and that you're continuing to succeed as your business grows, that you're not punishing yourself by finding more and more business success. But most of the time, it turns out that managed WordPress and managed application hosting today is built from the ground up to arrange for the reasons that people choose WordPress and other open source applications in the first place. It's because you need flexibility, you need customization, you have unique needs, and you want to stand them up quickly and without extensive code. If you didn't have those needs, you would be choosing something like a more closed platform. Modern web hosting companies understand this, and getting past the old paradigm of web hosting and into the new one where we know that you're doing different things to succeed, and that in 2020 it's competitive out there and we're going to be your partner hand in hand to get there, is the most important and crucial thing to understand. So how would I shop? Having understood the existing history of WordPress web hosting options right now, understanding that an MRR business has different demands and different needs than a WordPress website that may be just looking to put something out there online, like my personal brochure website, or maybe other smaller blogs or things like that, then we come in and we say, all right, let's figure out how to shop for web hosting today. If you're just starting out, I might ask where you want your focus to be. Many people that are just starting out as WordPress professionals and as people who are running MRR-based subscription models and recurring revenue models are people who are really great business owners. They're people who are really great creatives. They're people who are really amazing at creating visual assets or music. And a lot of the time, they may not be someone that wants to take on the work of server administration. If that's you, start at Managed WordPress. Those VPS options can look really attractive when you're cost conscious, but especially today in 2020, at the beginning of the year, before all the craziness of the year started, we actually saw a deep reduction in the prices of most managed WordPress offerings. That's because more and more people are entering the market. We're all competing for your business, and that means that we know that you want an affordable price point. So now we're seeing fully managed WordPress, WordPress support, value-added bundle perks across all companies. Managed WordPress price points that are super affordable even for someone that's starting out. It starts to be extremely worth it. We used to say, not even that long ago, that managed WordPress was a great choice for a growing WordPress store, and that quick throwaway stores or little brochure sites or things like that were all perfectly well handled using a VPS. For a lot of the time, that's still true, especially if you have a large volume of WordPress websites. But if you're just starting out and you're putting all that focus into one or two recurring revenue models, I would strongly encourage you to consider Managed WordPress because the prices have plummeted. For example, right now, Nexus Managed WordPress starts at $19 a month. It's super affordable for the level of service that you're getting, which is all application support all the way up to performance optimizations within WordPress itself. And then there's deals and coupons constantly running, and every other company that offers managed WordPress is doing something similar in terms of price point. So I deeply encourage, if you're starting out, to think that today in 2020 you can probably afford managed WordPress, or you probably can't afford to not be on managed WordPress. Now the next group of people may be my cost-conscious seasoned pros. So you know what you're doing, you're very comfortable in that VPS, and honestly, I obviously want everybody to put their WooCommerce stores on the fully featured, fully integrated, all the bells and whistles managed WooCommerce platform. But I also understand what it's like to be a business owner, and I don't believe you should fix what isn't broken. If you're okay in the current strategy that you're using and you're cost conscious and you know what you're doing and you've solved problems before, then you're doing great. if you're starting to see 500 errors, if you're starting to see buckling, if you're starting to see a slower WordPress admin dashboard, it makes a lot of sense to consider a managed host. Many times, my cost-conscious seasoned pros know that they can do it, so they do it. And one of the biggest things to learn about breaking business plateaus is that just because you can do something doesn't mean you have to. And a lot of cost-conscious professionals that really know what they're doing and that have a business that's been working but are trying to get to the next stage of success, the next stage of growth, are trying to figure out who could possibly handle their unique requirements. Well, the managed WordPress and managed application space has evolved a lot in the last 2 years, and most of that evolution has to do with high concurrency and with customizations, because we understand that when we look at the landscape, that's who's choosing WordPress. People who are using WooCommerce, people who are using WordPress are doing that because they're putting something unique out there. So a good managed WordPress offering has to accommodate the unique things that our merchants are doing. That means that when you have these conversations and you're coming in because you're getting downtime, because you're getting potentially slower dashboard speeds, you want to ask about concurrency. Don't just ask about speed. You don't care about the page loading fast. You care about the site and the application retrieving login information from the database fast, order histories from the database fast. You care about how many PHP processes can we have at one time, and do we have the right kinds of resources allocated to that site to handle all of those requests and to handle them dynamically and in a cost-effective way. Ask the right questions and trust that in 2020, most of your managed WordPress providers understand that you're going to have some custom requirements, and we're figuring out how to provide support and a higher level of service for many custom installations at scale. The last category here is your performance-focused growing MRR business. Now, we're all performance-focused. Whether you're starting out, you're a cost-conscious seasoned professional, everybody wants a fast site. It's an absolute requirement. You need to have a fast site for your customers to be happy, for Google and other search engines to be happy with you. But that still puts you, when you have that growing MRR business, in a slightly different bucket, because you might already be spending in the 3-4 figures for your hosting, and you might want to consider talking to enterprise sales for managed application hosting, even if nothing is wrong. That's because, again, in 2020, we're seeing a significant shift in the business across everybody and all the different players in the web hosting space say, hey, we're here because people are using WordPress to build custom things. And so things that maybe weren't possible a few years ago, even 3 years ago, are possible today on managed WordPress platforms. It's worth a conversation, and the vast majority of managed WordPress providers will have an enterprise sales team that will talk to you and listen to your requirements to figure out what we can do, if anything. And keep in mind that most managed application hosts, this is very true at Nexus, we're not going to recommend that you come on board the platform if we do not think that we can appropriately staff your unique requirements and customizations, because it's going to create a negative experience. We want you to be happy, and a good web host knows how to consult and how to do enterprise sales, how to listen to the problems that you're having and figure out if our product is a great fit or if it's not, and make a helpful recommendation otherwise. Now, a lot of the time when that helpful recommendation otherwise comes into play, it's because we've seen a part of your build that we do not believe we can reasonably accommodate with the way that we provide a higher level of service at scale as a managed application provider, as a managed WordPress provider. When you come upon this kind of information, it's worthwhile to consider, why is this like this? Was this a decision that I made to get somewhere fast and now it's time to fix it? We've seen a number of sites that maybe must run older versions of certain plugins or certain themes because of a specific customization that got made somewhere along the way. When you're growing and you're focused on performance and you're existing in 2020 when e-commerce is getting super competitive, we're seeing double-digit growth across all e-commerce verticals simply because of the current global situation, then you might want to think, is right now the time to maybe think about pulling back and rebuilding this specific aspect of what we're doing so that we can then pass off and delegate more of the work later down the road. And last few considerations when you shop for web hosting is to really take a close look at that support. As we went through the history of WordPress hosting, we saw that the true change comes in the higher level of service. We're trying to do more things for you. We're trying to take more things off your plate at scale and do them for everybody and take care of these tasks that everybody needs done so that you can focus on the things that really add value to that recurring revenue model. So you really want to zoom in on support and ask some key questions. I always like to ask about backups and restores. Ultimately, when things go wrong, whatever happens, the easiest way to fix it is just to go back to the last time it was okay. So how many times a day are backups taken? How many historical days of backups are we getting, right? If we only have a couple of days, that can be different from having 30 days, different from having 90 days. How fast can I get my backup? Especially if you're running a monthly recurring revenue business, those times of downtime or if a website that isn't working the way it's supposed to can cost you money. And so how quickly can we get into the old version that used to work? Can we manage those existing orders and so on and so forth? Your second consideration for your support examination is similar to the performance-focused examination, which is speed continues to be king. Is performance in scope? If your site is running slow, can you open a support ticket and expect to get help with all layers of your application? And if not, up until what point? And at what other point will you have to bring in a different sort of performance consultant to make sure that your site is running and your application is running the best that it can? And of course, will they pick up the phone or live chat or other instant channel? Make sure that when you look at 24/7 support, which just about every major web hosting company offers, that it's not just email and that there's also email threads for less pressing support issues that even you might not want to get on the phone for, but that if you really do need to get on the phone because something really bad happened, that there's somebody there that's going to pick up. And of course, we're all here talking about monthly recurring revenue and recurring revenue models. And so there are small considerations for your web hosting company if you're this kind of business, as opposed to, again, someone who's just putting some content online and displaying something as opposed to actively and dynamically doing something. So what's your web host's e-commerce experience? Are they hosting other types of these sites? You're not a regular website. Downtime means that you're losing money. And for that reason, we want to make sure that they say, yeah, we have e-commerce sites on the platform. We understand that any issue can cost you money, and we understand that it's a higher stakes game, and we will move accordingly when things go wrong, because they will. And the last thing that you might want to think about, and this is the most important consideration, is could they host your product? Many times it can be helpful to have your product, whatever it might be, and also your distribution channel, which often tends to be that WordPress website, that place where you process orders and let customers log in, look at their account, whatever, so on and so forth. In the same place, maybe one in unmanaged hosting and the other one in managed application hosting or managed WordPress hosting. It can be helpful if these two systems have to talk to one another to have a team that can touch all of them. It's absolutely not a requirement, and many times it won't even be possible, but it's certainly a perk if they can, especially for someone who's focusing on recurring revenue. Some last nice to haves, things that I look at when I'm looking at web hosting companies. Do they contribute back to the community? I like seeing that. I like seeing that a web hosting company, especially one that is selling something like Managed WordPress, which is free open source software, that they are giving back to WordPress since they are generating so much value from it, like many of us often do and ought to put back in the pool of comments. What's the feedback channel like? I personally really enjoy working with companies that will listen to me when I have product feedback and that will log it in a transparent way. And so asking this question of your web host, if that's important to you, can be a really great thing. What size company do you want to work with? What about location? Some people want to be with the biggest guy in the game because they're the biggest and the best. Other people would rather be with smaller companies, or they would rather be with a company that's near you geographically so that you're supporting your local economy. Web hosting companies have a wide variety and come in all shapes and sizes. And that might be something to think about once you've made your determinations about scalability, speed, support, security. And finally, depending on what type of business you're running, right? Whether it's a subscription business, it's content based, it's application based, it's a product. Do you care about affiliate programs? Do you want to do business with a web hosting company that you can recommend to colleagues, that you can recommend to customers, that you can build partnerships with and beyond? If that's important to you, I would also make sure that the company that you're doing business with is someone that you would want to generate business for through affiliate programs, partner programs, and so on and so forth. So that is about my guide for how to choose web hosting in 2020. I know it's a lot, but if you have any questions, I would be more than happy to hear them, answer them, and if you come up with them later, I'm widely available online to answer any questions you might have or be a resource in any way I can.
All right, that was fantastic. Make sure that you pop your questions in the comments as usual. We've got a few in the can right now, but as we're going through, we might be able to get to a couple more. So make sure to add those in. Christie, thank you so much for being here. That presentation was phenomenal. Are you ready to answer these questions together?
Yeah, let's do it.
Alrighty, let's start with the very first one. Do you know of a DNS provider that allows for lifetime dedicated IP addresses so that server changes on WP multi-sites are easier?
Do I know if a DNS provider provides lifetime IP addresses?
Addresses.
No,
Yeah.
I do not.
No.
No, sorry. I don't have a recommendation for that.
No worries. That's the answer.
I think what I might add to that is that when I think about problems like that, I might think about the simplest possible solution, right? And the simplest possible solution seems to me to make sure that you have a good team on your side. I'm sure that having a dedicated lifetime IP could help, right? But you're ultimately implementing a sort of tooling solution that maybe has good reasons for not being the case in the future, could spring up other problems for you. Whereas if what we're worried about is managing a multi-site network effectively, it sounds like you're better off having a conversation with enterprise sales at any managed WordPress host and saying, hey, one of my concerns is managing a multi-site network effectively.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great advice. All right, next question. Do you use WHM/cPanels or proprietary control panels, and why? Moving is more difficult to and from a proprietary system.
So this is a question about how Nexus works. Nexus has its own control panel. The reason why I am not on the engineering team, so again, with my role as sort of the product team for managed WooCommerce hosting, I focus a lot on what's going on WordPress and up, and the portal decision exists slightly below that, obviously incorporated, but in general, it has to do with one, availability of control, user experience, custom portals let us make it nicer, and we understand that migration can be a big hassle, and so you have, again, a good support team and a team on your side that's going to ease those troubles. There are most of our other hosting companies and managed WordPress hosting companies that we see now are also doing custom panels. It is now getting to a point where continuing to deploy cPanel, etc., is sort of an older choice, and we're optimizing on top of that. But again, right, it's one of those things where I fully acknowledge that I don't like it when I know how to use something really well, and then other people say, nope, we made this new custom thing that you don't know, and it's totally unique to us, and it's so much better, right? Like, I also have reactions to that I don't love. And I think that the trade-offs and the considerations, and again, it goes back to that support piece is so big, right? Like having a good team on your side that can be there when you have those questions.
Absolutely. Next question. could you speak on implementing server clustering for WP multi-site networks? And they put in parentheses, i.e. some resources and input.
No. I'm gonna go back to what I just said, which is a lot of my role is WordPress and up. With that said, I know that the vast majority of enterprise sales, I know at Next and Liquid Web they can do it. I know that at other major managed WordPress hosting companies they can also do it. You got to talk to enterprise sales. Don't be afraid to, right? And a good and skilled developer advocate and a good and skilled partner manager can give you the information or hunt it down. And at least with Nexus, I don't know how other hosting companies might work internally, but if you have a use case that makes sense and we think that we would be best suited in a certain type of infrastructure for you, we're going to make it happen, right? And that's why that enterprise tier on our website says and up, right? We're able to create custom builds that are still managed. And the thing about it, and I think I said this too, right, is that we're not going to say yes to something that we don't think we can manage at scale because it's a bad experience for you and it's a bad experience for us, right? Nobody wants to say yes to something unless we're absolutely confident that it's going to work. And that can be a conversation that you can have. And you can also do a lot of vetting of your potential host by having that conversation with enterprise sales, by seeing who they bring in, by seeing the types of expertise that they present to you and the types of information that they find for you. When you have that conversation, you can get a big sense of, again, going back into who's that team that is going to be there to support you.
Cool. Awesome. So we have one question left, but we do have time for one more. So if you have a question, make sure to submit it while Christie's answering the next one. We might be able to squeeze it in. And I think this next one is also going to be kind of outside of your purview, like knowing what you do. But I think you being who you are, you might be able to make a little bit of a prediction here. So they ask, do you see a future competition between hosting and WordPress support companies?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, it's a little bit more in my purview than the engineering and infrastructure questions, right? But I don't know about competition, right? My understanding of the WordPress maintenance and support business model right now is that they do in fact charge less and welcome folks that are using managed WordPress, just because, again, those sites are easier to manage at scale. So I don't know that we see a future in which we have people that are, on strictly unmanaged hosting and then leveraging a WordPress support plan. Those are sort of just, they're separated. I think that the future that we're seeing is we're going to see those things coming closer together. I think that when you think about WordPress support companies, they have figured out how to provide an even higher level of service at scale. And most of the managed WordPress providers today are going after competing really hard on cost, right? So making it a total no-brainer to be on the managed WordPress plan because of what you get and the way that then you continue to get monthly recurring revenue from anyone. And if you're anyone, is by providing ongoing value, right? So I got your money this month, but I'm not going to get your money next month unless I'm continuing to delight and continuing to add functionality and continuing to add benefit for the ongoing price and the length of the relationship. So all of your managed hosts are looking at continuing to up the game in the level of service, right? And continuing to make it so that you're not worried about infrastructure concerns, but that you have access to people who can give you information on infrastructure concerns or custom setups or builds if you need it for a specific project, and be your partner in vetting the right setup for the right project. And so you're going to, I think, see more of them coming together is what is going to happen, I think. That's pure speculation, of course, but given what I see priorities and movement in the market, I don't think that you're going to get managed WordPress as sort of like, oh, this is no longer a thing anymore. Instead, we're all using AWS and WP buffs. I think that you're going to see all of these services becoming even more enmeshed.
Right. Got it. Thank you so much, Christy. We do have to wrap up now and get ready for the next session. If you had a question for Christy and we weren't able to get to it, go ahead and put it on Twitter, tweet at her, or tweet at WPMRRVS, and we'll make sure that she sees it. Christy, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your time with us. Where can people find you if they need to tweet their questions at you?
Yeah, tweet your questions at me, even the ones that I was like, no, because I can find you the answer through somebody else on my team. I'm on Twitter. I'm at XTIE, Chirinos, CHIRINOS. So yeah, find me on Twitter. I have a website, christiechirinos.com. You can send me an email or also find me on Twitter, LinkedIn there. And of course, you know, if you're a Nexus customer, you can pick up the phone and be like, I want to talk to Christie right now. You know, so
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, thank you again, Christy, and have a great rest of your day.
all right, thank you.
Bye-bye.